Hello, happy Harvest Festival. I love Harvest Festival. It's one of those events that we do in church each year. It's a celebration, it's colourful, it's joyful, and it's also comfortable and familiar because we do it every year. Harvest Festival reminds us that we are reliant on God, that all we have comes from God, and that God has been, is, and always will be good to us. In a year when many have struggled to get hold of food when they weren't able to get to the shops or book a delivery slot, when lots of things were sold out because some were stockpiling, when more and more people have needed help from food banks and other charities just to put food on the table, it is good to be reminded of the two major themes of harvest time. Firstly, to be thankful for what we have rather than taking it for granted. And secondly, to be generous and share what we have with those who don't have enough. I remember right near the start of lockdown, when so many things were out of stock, cooking a meal and accidentally dropping some pasta on the floor and being absolutely horrified at what I'd wasted. A month before that, I would have hardly batted an eyelid and just moaned about needing to clean the floor. And I remember the final time I went to a supermarket before lockdown started. I was buying some things for us, but I also wanted to get some things for the food bank as well. I struggled not to cry in the middle of the supermarket when I turned into the tinned food aisle, because there was hardly anything left there. The stockpiling back then meant that food banks struggled to get hold of supplies just when people needed them the most. Thankfully, we've moved on from that now, and supply chains are more able to cope with the pressures. But I do feel that Harvest Festival is more significant than usual this year. Our Bible readings remind us of those central harvest themes of thankfulness and generosity. The story of the 10 lepers reminds us to thank God for what we have and not to take things for granted. Only one of the people Jesus healed of leprosy went back to him and thanked him. The rest forgot to say thank you. It is easy to forget to say thank you to others, and it's easy to forget to say thank you to God as well. But Harvest gives us a great opportunity to put that right. And it's been proven that being thankful is good for our mental health, something that's even more important than normal right now. It looks like God was onto something by telling us to be grateful, to count our blessings, and to be thankful for what we have. In the reading from Corinthians, Paul is saying to share what we have, because everything we have comes from God's goodness in the first place. And that sharing blesses us as well. We end up being richer in a different way when we give away some of what we have. I'm going to tell you a story about some brothers who took things for granted rather than being thankful, and how a woman sharing the little she had made a big difference. Long ago, there lived an old man with his 3 sons in a village, and the village was right on the edge of the desert. He had 17 camels, and they were the main source of his income. He used to rent out the camels as a means of shipping in the desert. One day he died, and he left a will, leaving all that he had to his 3 sons. After the funeral was over, the 3 sons read the will. While their father had divided all the rest of the property into 3 equal parts, he divided the 17 camels in a different way. They were not shared equally among the 3, as 17 is an odd number and a prime number, and you can't divide it equally between 3. A bit of a maths lesson there. The old man said that the eldest son would own half of the 17 camels, the middle one would get a third of the 17 camels, and the youngest one would get his share of the camels as 1/9. Now, if you're any good at maths, you'd have realised that doesn't quite work out. And the brothers realised that as well. All of them were quite shocked when they read the will and questioned each other on how on earth they would divide 17 camels as mentioned in the will. It isn't possible to split 17 camels and give half to the oldest brother. If you did that, you'd end up with 8.5 camels, and nobody wants half a camel. They spent several days thinking of ways to divide the camels, but they couldn't find an answer, and they started arguing with each other, trying to convince the rest of them that they were the ones who deserved more than they should have got in the will. Eventually, because they couldn't think of anything else to do, they went to see a wise woman in their village. The wise woman heard the problem, and she instantly found a solution. She asked them to bring all the 17 camels to her. The sons brought the camels to the wise woman's house. The wise woman gave them one of her camels. They were a bit shocked, but they happily accepted it. So when they had added her camel to their 17, they had 18 camels. Now she asked the first son to read the will again. The will said that the eldest son should get half of the camels. Now there were 18 camels, and you split that into 2 to make a half. That was quite easy because you got 9 whole camels. So that's what the eldest son got as his share. And then there were 9 camels left. The wise woman asked the second son to read the will. He was meant to have a third of the total number of camels. So now that there were 18 camels in total, and you divide it by 3, 18 divided by 3 is 6. So the second son got 6 camels as his share. Again, a whole number of camels, so no camels had to be cut up. So the total number of camels shared by the 2 elder brothers was 9 plus 6, which is 15 camels. Then the third son was asked to read out his section of the will, and he was told that he would get a 9th of the camels. Now there were 18 camels. If you divide that by 9, you get 2 camels. So the youngest son got 2 camels as his share. When you add it all up, there were 9, 6, and 2, which when you add that up comes to 17. There was 1 camel left, which they gave back to the wise woman. We've been told this week that we're likely to have some restrictions in place for the next 6 months, and that we've probably got quite tough times ahead. As we celebrate harvest this year, let's use this harvest time to remind us of God's goodness and faithfulness, even when things are hard. Even in 2020, we have got a lot to say thank you for. Let's remember not to take anything or anybody for granted. Let's be thankful for all that we do have. And let's share and be generous when and where we can. In that story, the woman's generosity meant that everybody was blessed and she didn't actually lose out at all. Like the woman in that story, we can make a difference, each and every one of us. Let's keep being thankful and sharing all year round. Goodbye.